Welcome, everyone. We're going to give this a few minutes as people are rolling in. Feel free to drop in the chat box where you're joining us from and what the weather's like there. I know, Rachel, you're in Texas. What's it like there today?
We are having a cold front, which is totally, this is my dog, everybody, Max. He loves webinars and he doesn't bark. We're having a sudden cold front, which is not expected. It was like 75 degrees yesterday.
Oh, so I'm in Virginia and it is pouring down rain. I have zero idea what the temperature is, but it's gross out.
Rachel said it's snowing in Taos. I love that. I also, I love the way you spell your name, Rachel. You spell it the right way. Thank you for doing that. Awesome. We're going to have so much fun today, and we are so excited for everybody that's joining us. I'm jealous. I'm not jealous of Jasmine, where it's 19 degrees in Montana, but my goodness. But it looks like some of you guys are enjoying some nice, lovely, warm weather.
Yeah, it looks like some people, Florida is 81 and sunny. I'm jealous of that. I would even take the 73 in South Carolina.
So, okay. Yeah. Oh, 70 in Rhode Island. Wow. That's, I would think it would be cooler. France, where are you, France? What part
Colorado
of the beautiful
Springs, Colorado, where
awesome.
It is 18 degrees, but that is balmy compared to the -7 it was 2 nights ago.
Wow. Awesome. Okay, I'm gonna
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. You go ahead. You go ahead.
Few housekeeping items before we get started. This webinar is being recorded. You will be sent an email with the recording later today. If you have any questions for Rachel or any of our speakers from this week, please put them in the QA area and we will do our best to get those answered before our hour is up. If we haven't had the chance to meet, I'm Kate Kramer. I'm the Partner Marketing Manager at Bloomerang. We are an online platform for your organization's fundraising and database management needs. If you'd like more information on what we do, please visit the link on the screen. We'd certainly love to chat with you. Now, without further ado, I would love to introduce the fabulous Rachel Muir. Rachel is a recovering executive director who has worked every side of the Rubik's Cube that is the nonprofit sector. She started Girl Start when she was just 26, which is an organization empowering girls in STEM. Today, she helps fundraisers delight their donors, survive their boards, and raise more money. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you so much for having me, Kate. And thank you so much to Sarah and to Linda and to France for being with us today. And thank you for everybody joining us. We are so thrilled to have so many people signed up and so many people here today. And I want to invite all of you to pop any questions you have into the Q&A. I've got the questions that have been asked all week while Linda and Sarah and France were dazzling you with their amazing insights. They did such a fantastic job. And so I'm going to be introducing each of them to you in the event that you only got to see one of them. And I'm going to be asking them one of the great questions that they got during their session. So I'm going to kick things off with Sarah. Sarah is a data guru. And I bow to her data prowess. Am I right? You live in Boston, but you grew up in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Mm-hmm. She's got 2 kids under 2. Ouch.
Yes, very ouch.
I've got 2 kids that are twins and they're teenagers. She likes oysters. I love oysters too. She's a data translator for nonprofit executives, which I love that phrase, data translator. I mean, who doesn't need a data translator in their life? I mean, so important, so important. Finance translators, great job too. Emotional translator, wife translator, husband translator, but I love data translator. She used to be a strategy consultant for Accenture. And I feel like if Sarah was setting a goal for you in 2023, my fundraising friends, it would be, how can you be more data informed. So Sarah had a lot of questions this week, and gosh, this is I feel like a really good. Well, there's so many great questions, and I'm going to introduce everybody. But before I go on to introduce France and Linda, I'm going to give Sarah one of her amazing questions. What are your data capture best practices? We are a global, decentralized nonprofit. We've got a network of communities that implement our programs, and we don't capture information from these communities. Do you have any high-level best practices for how we should be capturing our data?
So everyone is different, and that's a very
Yes.
consulting answer is it depends. And that's the most annoying answer. But to try to answer it specifically is anywhere you can connect with your constituents or your stakeholders or whoever it is that you're trying to obtain your data from, make sure that everything is very standardized. So make sure you're not asking people to just write in what state they're from or write in, anything that is a standard kind of predefined answer. Because we want to make sure that on the back end, we can analyze and crunch the data in as easy as a way as possible. So we don't want people spelling Massachusetts 10 different ways. We just want it to say MA. And that's it. So that's pretty simple and it's very basic though. But I can't tell you how many clients I do see that just don't have things standardized like that. And then also making sure that wherever you are asking things, try to make sure that obviously you don't want to inundate people and have them have either survey fatigue and ask people too many things. But where you can ask them across different programs, across different timelines, so that as you're starting to understand and try to analyze what's going on within your organization and your programs, you can analyze past time periods or across different programs. And that just kind of makes your data a little bit richer.
That is an awesome answer. I absolutely love that. Fantastic. And I feel like this really leads really well into France, because, we're talking about data and we're talking about learning more. We want to know everything that's useful about our clients so that we can understand our programs, we can understand our data, and we can report that data back to our funders. And from France's world, from the high-tech world, and let me just introduce France for a second and say, he's a veteran entrepreneur. He doesn't just have an MBA, he also has a law degree, and at least a few school-age kids. Am I right? At least a couple?
Yes. Yes, I have 3 young startups at home, 8, 5, and 3. Yes.
Wow. He's coming to us from Colorado Springs, Colorado. And just like Sarah is helping you understand the data of your programs, your operations, and how it can inform your success and what you want to do and communicate to your funders, France is helping you understand the data behind your donors and learning more about your donors. So this is, we've got a couple questions. I'm going to mention both of these and France can decide which ones he wants to answer. I'm guessing this one from Tim is for France. Should I be considering AI or Chat GPT? AI is artificial intelligence. I don't even know what Chat GPT is, but I'm guessing France might.
Yes. So Chat GPT is a form of what's called generative AI, or a large language model. So it is a tool that uses AI to generate answers to questions you ask. And it is very transformative. If you're looking to create new content, you can literally open Chat GPT and say, write me a donor letter in the style of Ernest Hemingway to a major donor asking for $100. And it will generate you a piece of text that you can then draft and edit. It's pretty amazing. Like all AI, it has limitations. It suffers from what we call the 90% problem, which means it's right about 90% of the time. And then 10% of the time it suffers from, and literally this is the term used, hallucinations. It gives you wrong information that sounds convincingly right. And so one of the challenges of new technology is how to use it correctly. And that's where, when we talk about technology with our partners, we talk about really the partnership between people and technology, right? It's AI is not going to replace anybody on this call and anybody listening today, because frankly, there are things that AI can do really, really well: generate new ideas, analyze large data sets, provide you analytics. And I'm happy at some point today to talk about the different types of analytics and what AI can do, but it has no judgment, right? It doesn't understand relationships. And as we know, fundraising at the end of the day really boils down to connecting with people, right? And connecting with what the things they care about. And AI can't do that.
Awesome. Well, now is my pleasure to introduce Linda Haley from Let's Build Hope in St. Louis. Linda is a CFRE, and she is Outstanding Fundraiser of the Year that she won from AFP in St. Louis. And Linda blew my mind, sharing so many nuggets of wisdom. And I know that and I've got one question live, and she had a lot of questions on our call. So one of the things that Linda talked about in her session was CDR, which is cost per dollar raised, so that you can really understand, just like Sarah is helping you understand your data of who you're serving and how you can inform, how you can give that information back to your funders. And France is helping you understand the entire universe and what you can learn about your about fundraisers, and using predictive modeling and predictive analytics to get more funders. Linda was talking about really like understanding how much money you can raise, having a case for your support, getting your board involved, and CDR, cost per dollar raised, which is a really important piece of understanding how much does fundraising cost you. So one of our participants wants to know, Linda, is there a good tool or spreadsheet that you suggest for accurately calculating CDR, which is cost per dollar raised, and including the indirect costs? It's easy for us to track postage and printing, but what about staff time?
That's great. So, and a great question. Thanks, Rachel. So really what we do is we want you to project CDR in two ways. And I said this a little bit yesterday, but quickly, because 30 minutes. So really what you want to do is you want to look at each activity, and I want to use grants as an example. If you have costs for grants, it's usually for a grant writer. If the grant writer does nothing but grant write, that goes against the hard cost of grant writing. If the grant writer writes grants, does direct mail, helps with events, blah, 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 don't dump it in there, okay? Because it's very hard. We're not lawyers. We don't turn the clock every 15 minutes and say, here's what I did. I was a chief development officer for years. In a day as a chief development officer, I would touch 15 or 20 things. No way did I know how much time I spent on things. We're not accountants, okay? So really what we want you to do is take direct costs and bump them against the direct activity. If it's a gala, right? All the costs of the gala, all the hard costs. If you have a contractor who does nothing but work on the gala, that cost, but don't put the overhead of the CDO or the CEO or any of that in there. To get that included, put that in your total, okay? We have a thing called the development budget outline, and you show each activity, and the last line is overhead, and that's the cost of the staff that helps do everything. Because otherwise you get into all this detail, and then you can get a program CDR, full fundraising program CDR, and savvy donors will ask you things like, Linda, how much of my money did it cost for you to throw this gala? And you can say, hopefully under 30 cents. That is somebody else asked in the chat, what's the indicator? 30 cents or under, guys, 30 cents or under. You go over 30, unless you're getting significant numbers of new donors or there's real fundraising coming out of that that's turning into donations, that's too high, okay? As you get to be large charities, it's gonna be hopefully much lower. And so your goal is a program cost of CDR 30 cents or under, and activity costs 30 cents or under. And what you'll see when you evaluate each activity, like a 24-hour campaign, many of our 24-hour campaigns come in at 3 cents on the dollar. The donor loves to hear that. You're not wasting my money to raise money. And they don't mean wasting in a mean way. They just want you to be really good stewards, and most of you are. So just realize those two things can be separated, okay? So that the overhead is included, but you're not trying to parse it out. I would also say, remember, you're not finance reporting. You don't have to worry about the cost of the building and all of those kinds of things. Let the finance guy deal with that. On the development reporting, if you dump all of those costs in, your cost per dollar raise is going to go way up. And that is not what the donor cares about. That building is going to be sitting there whether you're in it or not, okay? So you don't need to worry about that on the fundraising side. The finance people will show that in their reporting, okay? So that's usually how we do it.
Linda, we got a live question that I absolutely love. And since you and I spend so much of our career as frontline fundraisers in the nonprofit world, I'm going to give you this awesome question. It is a fantastic one. It's from Noah. Soon Noah's going to be graduating with a bachelor's degree in philanthropy. Congratulations, Noah. He was blessed to start work as a development associate in the middle of January, so he's already employed. Do you have any advice for a new development associate, Linda? What would you have told yourself when you started out?
That is a really great question. And welcome, Noah. We love baby fundraisers. That's what I'm going to call you. I was a baby fundraiser when I started at 33. I am by far the oldest person on this call. My kids are in their 30s. So I have grandkids. When I started, I was really lucky and got a great mentor. My first boss was the fundraiser of the year in the United States. So he was a rock star, took me under his wing and taught me a lot. And what he really did is disavow me of all my very bad ideas, because I had a million of them, really bad, like, hey, you should put an ask in the thank you letter because it would save postage. Duh. Terrible idea, just FYI, right? Don't ever thank somebody and ask at the same time. But I didn't know that, Noah, because I had Jim, I didn't have to make those mistakes. So job one, when you're fundraising, is get a great mentor. We also say when you get a mentor, make sure they've actually been successful in fundraising. Lots of people are in fundraising for years. Turnover in our business is 16 months. You need to find people who've been successful, who successfully raised money, stayed at their jobs, hopefully 5 years at a time, 3 to 5 years at a time. If you see 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, 2 years, that's somebody who maybe is losing their job every 2 years because they don't know how to fundraise. So pick a great mentor. That's a great way to start. Also, make sure that you understand fundraising start to finish. We do a lot of one-off training in fundraising, learn about lapsed donors, learn about grant writing, learn about major gifts, but you need to understand how it all fits together. Case development, annual planning, board development, it's very linear. So I would say also the more you can do to really learn how fundraising works in the real world versus what you learn in university, which is lovely and helpful. But when you're sitting across from an angry billionaire, the 5 steps of major gifts don't help you very much. You got to know what to do at that moment. And that's where those mentors come in. Priceless. Oh my God. I'm so grateful still, not just to Jim, but to all the fantastic mentors that I have had. They've saved my bacon. Oh my God, so many times.
I love that. And I would say to Noah that you never climb the top of fundraising mountain and wave down at everybody down below and say, yay, I'm here. I got here. Fundraising is like a awesome adventure, a roller coaster ride from start to finish. So take really good care of yourself, and know that and I know that Sarah and France and Linda would agree with me here. No success at work is worth failure at home, or so take good care of yourself along the way, because there's burnout's a real thing. And Lauren is already asking Linda if Linda will be her mentor. Okay, Shelley asked a great question. And I want to invite Sarah, France, maybe even Kate might even want to answer this. Shelley asked, we are starting to close in on the data we need to focus on, but I really want to find a way to capture, sort, and store it in a streamlined way that anyone could access. There has to be a better way than spreadsheets on someone's individual computer or the Google Drive. Is there an app for this? It really sounds like Shelley is like ready for a CRM or donor database, in my humble opinion, but is there anything that France, Sarah want to share as advice, or even Linda?
So this may not be what Shelley or anybody else is expecting, but I always advocate for simplicity when getting started. So if you're just starting to really close in on the data that you need, and it sounds like it may continue to evolve and change, my opinion is that before you over-engineer a software or platform, or investing in some type of CRM where things are probably going to constantly be changing, you don't know how the data is interacting with each other, start in Excel or Google Sheets or anywhere else, but keep it really organized. And that's going to allow you to be the most flexible, the most nimble, the most dynamic as you're starting to really understand the types of data you need and where it's coming from, how you're interacting with it, how the data is playing together. And then from there, you can take Google Sheets and Excel data and import them into any system once you have a really solid use case and a really solid understanding of the type of software or system or platform that you need. So that is my personal opinion. Unless you have a really, really, really strong understanding of your data structure and how you're using it, I would still continue to use that Google Sheets or Excel.
Yeah, I would add there's different tools that are appropriate at different parts of a nonprofit's life cycle. And certainly when you're just starting off, you don't want to like Sarah said, over-engineer or buy something that's way too more complex than what you need. I would say that whatever you do, you do want it accessible. Create an account that is not tied to an individual, create an organizational account, keep it cloud-based, right? You don't want, when, Sarah, Joe, or Mary leaves the organization or goes on vacation, then nobody's access to your data again. So just, do get organized, but I agree with Sarah. You can start off simple and then grow from there.
That is an awesome piece of advice. And we've got a guide that I think you'll find really helpful, both for you, Shelley, as well as for Michaela, who asked a question about data systems. It was something that I had the pleasure to write with Bloomring, and it's like a guide for what to think about as you're shopping for a system for your CRM, what questions to ask yourself and how to go about it. So I have a question for Linda, and then I'm going to get back to France and Sarah, but this was a truth bomb that Linda dropped in her session, and she definitely had a question about it. But she had this really, I love this question. I love this statement that she made. And she said, your board members should not be allowed to approve a budget that they are not helping raise. They need to be on board when they approve that budget that they're going to help raise that money. And someone said, what if you don't have access to the board?
Well, I hate to tell you, having been a consultant for way more years than I want to say out loud, we see it a lot. As consultants, we push hard on what we call the fundraising triangle, the CEO, the board chair, and the development officer working together all the time, because fundraising is half of the job of the board of directors, governance and fundraising, right? And so I think this is one of those challenging educate up moments. I don't like the words managing up because it sounds manipulative, but I like educate up. And so if your CEO and board chair do not understand that you should be in the board meeting, then you have to share with them why that's going to be important. And one of the main reasons is your ability to move the board forward and help you in fundraising is predicated on you having some credibility. If you don't show up at a board meeting, how do you have any? You're a no one. I mean, that's the way the board is going to see you. Who's that little development coordinator that I'm patting on the head over there? No, you're the development officer. You're the person that helps fiscally support the nonprofit with fundraising expertise. Your job is to inspire, motivate, educate your board members so they can help you fundraise. You can't do that if you can't call them, talk to them, be at the board meeting, and have credibility. I had a CEO say to me once, I was so frustrated with him. He said, well, we don't have her there because she's not mature enough. And I said, okay, well, one of two things is not true. She is mature and you're uncomfortable, or she's not and you have the wrong development officer, right? I mean, you do not want a development officer who's not mature, but I know lots of 30-year-olds who are mature, right? You don't have to be 60 to be mature. I think what they're afraid of is they don't know what you're going to say. So part of your job, one of the reasons I love metrics, oh my God, I love them so much, is because it makes me look really savvy at my job, right? It looks like I know the cost per dollar raised. I know the CDR, percent response. I know exactly how much money we can raise. I can show you the keep your job tool and hit every month. Now I look like I know what I'm doing. So part of your job is to earn that respect. And part of it is to educate them that you need it, right? And if you do those things, then I think that's going to open that board door. And I would say to you, honestly, if you're there and they won't let you in after all of that, you might want to look for something else, because you're being set up for failure. If you can't access your board in a board meeting, I don't know how you're going to raise money. I mean, don't get me wrong, you're going to work with them individually, but you need to be part of that team, that we.
That's really, really good advice.
Rachel, can I add to that?
Yes, please.
So I serve on 4 different nonprofit boards. So I'm kind of on the other end of this as a board member. And I will tell you, I'm always amazed at how development directors don't engage the board as a resource. Like people will serve on boards of nonprofits because they care, right? Because they care about the cause, they want to make a contribution, they want to make a difference. and they will do a lot if asked. And I find that a lot of development directors are hesitant to make the ask, or maybe they're being held back, in, to Linda's point, from making that ask. But good executive directors should understand their board is a tremendous resource to the entire organization, and particularly to the development director. So I, you know, as a development director, one of the things I would highly encourage you all to do is make that point to your executive directors and say, like, look, the board is one of our most tremendous resources, and I need to form a relationship with them so that we can take full advantage of that resource.
Okay. And
I love that. And there was another question that Linda got that I think this is great. And France, this is a great question for you to offer your perspective as a board member. So one of the things that came up in Linda's session was she was talking and in Sarah's as well. They were both talking a lot about metrics. Linda, and you guys all talked about metrics in terms of retention. And Linda talked about metrics in terms of your retention rate. And you talked about the importance of, France, of once you acquire a donor, doing great stewardship so that you can keep that donor, and keeping that donor is how you have a great retention rate. And Elisha asked a question in Linda's session. What if you don't have, because Linda was talking to this point that she just made about, you know, she has your keep your job tool, and she's keeping track of all of her metrics in terms of cost per dollar raised, in terms of, and this is something Linda does, I encourage everyone to do. If you are raising major gifts, you need, and this is what is in her keep your job tool, you need to have a portfolio that runs your fiscal year, whether it's a calendar year and it's January to December, or it's like June to July, or however you're operating. And it needs to have each month and how much you're raising each month and how you're raising that money each month. And within major gifts, I'm a huge fan of having a portfolio of January to December, my 150 donors that I have in my portfolio, each month, each donor, when am I going to ask them? What am I going to ask them for? How much am I planning to raise? And when you add it up, because it's Excel, so it naturally adds up, you know, okay, I'm going to raise $1 million this year. And that way, when your board member comes back to you and says, oh my gosh, Sarah, bad news, we lost a really big grant and now you need to raise 200,000 extra dollars, you can push back and say, well, here's my portfolio. It's not going to be able to come from individual donors. What are other strategies that we can brainstorm? So Linda was talking about having her keep your job tool, which covers your fundraising plan, which was her topic, you know, how much money you're going to raise for the year and how important that is, so that you can push back if you've got board members. And let's be honest, sometimes board members, not France, because France is great, but some board members can be like idea fairies, and they're giving you all these ideas like, oh my goodness, Linda, have you thought about asking Oprah for money, or Michael Dell, or Elon Musk? And, you know, Linda's like, well, I don't know Elon Musk. Do you know Elon Musk? Because if you don't have Elon's phone number, and if he doesn't care about our mission, we're not going to get anywhere. And that's a total waste of time. And one of the things that she talked about in her session was pushing back when a board member gives you a bad idea, and showing, well, these are our metrics. This is our strategic plan. These are the goals that we have to set on. Maybe that's something we consider in the future, but right now we all agree that these are our goals moving forward. So Elijah's question was, what if you don't have the metrics on why a bad idea is bad? How do you say no? Because in Linda's example, she had like, we tried that and we lost money. What would you say to that, Linda?
Yeah, so we use what I would call like 8 performance indicators, and we take those indicators against each activity. So let's say you're looking at your trivia night that you've had for 11 years and it raises $28,000 and you spend 3 months. Okay. So the indicators are, and I'm going to try to get them all in my head. I've been teaching them a while, but there's 8 of them and I'm not 20 anymore. So number 1, how much money do you raise? Number 2, how much money do you spend? Number 3, what's the net? Number 4, what's the cost per dollar raised? Is it 30 cents or under? Number 5, what's the retention rate of people that come there? How many of them stay and give another gift, right? So you're going right to those things. And then you're going to things like staff time. And I swear to you, our clients, we double it every time. Whatever they tell us, we double it because we know they're lying, right? Or they don't remember, or they're not counting because they want to keep their trivia night, right? Like, oh, Linda, 120 hours, 240, right? Okay. So we just take an average number like $22 and we multiply it times 240 and we see how much money is that, right? Just getting an idea of what are you actually spending. And then here's the other question. If you spent that 240 hours on mid-level giving or major gifts or an online 24-hour campaign, how much more money could you raise? How many more donors could you retain, right? If you look at those indicators plus mission fit, don't forget mission fit. Why are you an arts organization having a walk, right? Or why are you a health charity having an art show, right? Like that stuff doesn't fit your mission. The point of every event should be mission relatedness. So I can get you captive and inspire you to give money. And if I can't do that, like at the walk, what happens at the walk? You're up front, you're raw, 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 no one can hear you. But, they don't know what you're saying. You're not getting any more money. Plus that's peer-to-peer fundraising that you can't control very well. It's kind of tit for tat, transactional. I mean, there's a lot of things. So if you use indicators like that, and I can share indicators with you guys, it's simple and go through every activity. The bad ones glare. And we have our clients take them and put them in 3 buckets. This is a great activity based on all these indicators. This is okay, fix it. This is bad, cut it. Right. And then when you cut things, of course, you have to, even if you made 25,000 for trivia, you have to replace it. Right. So now what are we doing? Right. And what's the next step? And how do we, for me, that's a lunch, 25,000 is a major gift call, right? It's not, you don't need to have a trivia night for that. Right. So those are the kinds of indicators that will help you know whether your activities are worth keeping and whether they're performing properly.
Love it. Francis, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%, Linda. I think, when you have a board ask or a board suggestion, you must be data driven about it, right? We need to see whether the output is worth the input, juice is worth the squeeze. On a practical side, let me make a suggestion. There should be someone on your board that is a development chair, or if you don't have a formal development subcommittee, someone who knows about fundraising. And I would strongly recommend that you as a development director form a alliance with that person, right? And you as a development director, as a staff member, you want to be saying yes to your board members, right? You don't want to be sitting in a board meeting telling them their idea is terrible, because that's not a good way to manage board relations. But, that person on your board who's the head of the development chair or is your kind of ally can say, hey, that's a great idea. Let's take that to development committee meeting. And would you like to be on the development committee, right? Or they can be the one that kind of pushes back a bit and say, look, we need to be data driven, love these ideas. Let's go ahead and talk about this offline. That way you're not in the position of having to answer, to every good idea that, your board member comes up with in the middle of a board meeting.
And I would throw on top of that, that's such a great piece of advice. And I would throw on top of that, in addition to that, I think I said something like it yesterday, when you build the plan, I have my development committee members in the building of the plan. I don't do it on my own and hand it to him, because if he's there, Francis is there, he's learning more about development, he's giving me good input, he's seeing all that data, then he can be my advocate to the board, and he can say to his peers on the board things I as a staff member can never say, right? So I love a development committee member in the planning sessions, because that's such great partnership. I really love that. Francis, you want to be on some boards I'm on? I mean, I call you up later and you and I can bond over this, because you're saying all the things we wish all board members knew. But guys, remember, people who work in the for-profit sector, they don't know this, right?
Exactly.
They don't know. So don't be mad at them. They're trying hard. You got to be gentle with that elegant no, but you do have to say it. You do have to set that boundary to take good care of your nonprofit and still be really respectful. Stay away from the shaming thing or the finger pointing thing. We don't want to treat our boards like that's such a gift that they give their time and their energy and their talent, their money. We want to be really gentle with them, but still, clear about the boundaries.
Love it. I've got a couple of requests for you to share your indicators, Linda. So I don't know if you want to verbally share those or type those into the chat.
How about you have them send me an email and I'll send them to you? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Darlene and Michael, you can, I'll let you pop your email address into the chat, Linda. And then they can email you directly.
I'll be happy to share it. I can't remember them off the top of my head and I don't want to get it wrong. So yeah.
No, I totally get it. Okay. So we have another question, and this is I feel like this is a great one for Sarah. This is maybe that could see this being great for France and Linda too. What are key data points that we should try to get from our donors? Mainly they're responding in the first instance to an appeal to become a listener. This is radio. and not an individual like major gift request or a direct mail appeal. So what kind of information, what are key data points do we want to try to get from our donors?
So again, I would say, what are you, I would ask yourself, what do you want to know or need to know? So getting data and asking for data is great, but only if you really have an idea of how you're going to use it. So if you can understand what you're trying to glean from these donors, that will inform what you ask them. So we can ask them a million things under the sun. The important thing is to understand what are the right things to be asking. I can't answer that for you. I can only help guide you to say, ask you the right questions that's going to help you understand what at the end of the day, as whatever, if you're an executive director or director of development and your organization, is going to help you do your job better. And so, unfortunately, I feel like this is another non-answer. But ultimately, an exercise that I like to do with my clients is just literally have them take out a piece of paper. And if you were staring at a fictional 1-page dashboard in front of you, and I give you like my child's crayon, how simple it would be. What information would you want to and need to know on a daily or weekly or monthly basis, and draw that out. And then that will inform the types of data and the types of information that you can solicit from your donors.
I love it. I love it. Francis, did you want to add to that?
Sure. So data collection, right? What data do you collect? So there's broadly 2 big buckets of data that nonprofits collect. First is information about their contacts and their donors. This is people data, right? Name, contact information, when were they last contacted? How did they come to know about the organization? It's information about the donors and contacts. And then the second bucket is donation information, right? How much was given by who, in response to what, when was it given? Those 2 kind of big lists, right, of databases allow you to do a lot of analysis. One donation or one donor is a data point. You get a lot of donors, you get a lot of donations. Now you have data that now you can analyze. And happy to talk. Sarah and Linda and myself all have different kind of experiences and approach to analyzing data. I don't want to over answer the question, Rachel, but maybe that's a follow-up question. But that, in terms of gathering information, those are the 2 main buckets.
Awesome. And let's nerd out for a second, France. There's different in your world of helping nonprofits do predictive modeling, predictive analytics, where you're helping them identify who prospects are. There's lots of different kinds of information that you're trying to mine, if you will. There's predictive, prospective, and descriptive. Tell us a little bit more about what those are.
Sure. Love the question. So some of us are data geeks and we love data for data's sake. I'm one of them, but I understand that many people don't love data, right? They just want data to do something for them. So data by itself doesn't help you. It just sits there in your CRM or in your Google Drive, right? So you need to do something with it. You need to analyze it. And if you analyze data, you get analytics off of data. And there's 3 types of analytics. The first is descriptive analytics. That is what has happened in the past. If I look at a list of donors and donations, I can see who gave, I can see how much they gave, I can see what they gave in response to, and that's all backwards looking. I could then take that same data and make predictions. That's predictive analytics. And that's whether that's an analysis by a consultant or that's using a tool like Boodle. Now I can predict who's going to give again, how much are they going to give, what campaign are they going to respond to? Now that starts being useful information for a fundraiser, right? Because I can now be smarter in terms of where I put my time, my energy, my effort. The holy grail of fundraising is to get to prescriptive analytics, which is telling a fundraiser what to do next, right? Who should I ask for money? How much I should ask? What message should I send and what channel should I use? And there's a lot of platforms and people trying to get to that place inside of our technology, because we all understand, right? Fundraisers, all of us, we're overworked and underpaid, and we're trying to do the best we can. And there is great information and insights to be unlocked and analytics from our data. We just need to get there.
I love it. Super helpful. We're answering all your questions, so don't be shy, my fundraising friends, about typing them into the chat. We got this question. Well, Sarah got this question, I believe, or maybe it was Linda. Do you help people who nonprofit organizations, political related? And I know the answer was yes. So that was a question from Jeffrey. I'm going to dig back into some of these awesome questions that came from the sessions that our friends did. And I do want to mention, I dropped a playbook for choosing a database into the chat. This is something I had the pleasure to co-author with Bloomerang, and it's in there. So for all my fundraising friends, who are like Mary Jo, who's from a women's shelter, and they're thinking about like, and for all the people who have chatted in and asked questions about, we're closing in on the data, but we want to find a way to capture it and sort it and streamline it. This could be helpful for you in terms of thinking about what you have right now and what you want and how you would use it. This is a question that's been asked a couple times, and I'm not going to pronounce this person's name right, but they had this question. They're joining us live today, and they had this question during Linda's session. Should we focus on our past performance for metrics or find standardized metrics? And if so, then should those be of a comparable size nonprofit or a similar sector nonprofit? And then this is a question that Linda got, but I could see Sarah wanting to answer this as well.
Yeah, I would say standard measures are probably not going to be helpful to you. I mean, you really need to know what your donors will do. And I'll tell you, we have about 36 clients right now. They can be very similar in size and mission, and they can have donors who act completely differently, right? I'll give an example of the gala, just to kind of give you an idea of the mindset. This donor set over here, they're like, we don't want to band at the gala. We want to have our cocktails. We want to have our dinner. We don't have our speeches. We want to raise our paddle. We want to get the heck out of there, right? 9 o'clock, we're home and we're in bed. This group, keep the band till 3 o'clock in the morning, open bar, partying all day long, completely same mission, social services, $1 to $3 million, and they just have different donors. So to say, I'm going to use some standard measures to predict how my people are going to respond to different kinds of fundraising activities, not so much. I will tell you, one of the hardest things when you first start performing any kind of metrics-driven work around fundraising projections is if you don't know your donors, both collectively and individually. Trying to project what I'm going to do if you don't know me at all is tough. So what does that mean? You got to get out of the office. That no money is coming into your office through the computer screen. You're going to have to get out there and do your thing, right? You have to meet your donors and do a lot of listening, 80-20 to the donor, right? Ask a lot of good questions, zip it and listen to the donor. That's where, especially the deeper data around your mid-level and major gift donors is. Certainly we can use things that are in databases, and I love data and metrics and all the things that have gone on in the past. And I do believe in looking at historical data. The other thing I would say is make sure that when you make a projection, you figured out what you're going to do to get an increased response. Don't just say we're going to grow by 10% or 20% or raise 700,000 in major gifts. What are you doing to get that to happen? If you don't have strategy, you can't measure your strategy against your outcomes and see if that actually works, right? That's the beauty of a database, is be able to look at Bloomerang and say, pull me reports on my major gifts this year. How many visits did I make? How many gifts did I close? What was the average gift? I mean, then I can really learn what happened. Sarah, I know you have more to say, so I'll zip it.
Well, I will say I agree with everything you just said, Linda. And I agree in terms of the standard metrics. I mean, I think it's more. I think your gala example is perfect. Compare yourself to yourself. So benchmark yourself against what you did last year in the gala, what you did 3 years ago in the gala, and what was different, what you changed, things like that. And that's going to be more helpful than comparing yourself to the other gala that does things very differently. Like Linda was saying. The other thing I want to piggyback on what Linda just said around your goals to increase your major gifts donors by $700,000 in terms of strategy. How are you going to get there? A goal is a lagging indicator. Like that's past performance, and we don't know if we've gotten there until it's done. And so what Linda was saying is we need to know how we're going to move the needle there and what levers we're going to pull. And then we can compare, okay, these are the meetings I had, these are the phone calls I made. And then you can see the conversion rate of what you've done in your activities and that strategy and how it converted to your actual goal. And then you can actually, from just some simple math, know if you want to raise an extra $700,000 this year, and you know this is approximately your conversion of your activities to how much you raise, you can understand how many meetings, how many phone calls you're going to have to make, how many new FTEs you're going to have to hire in order to get there, to know if that's even sustainable for your team.
I love it. We got a question from Jessica that I absolutely adore that I'm going to answer. And then I'm going to spotlight something that Linda talked about that totally speaks to what Sarah and Linda just covered. Jessica asked, how do you start to initiate a relationship with a mid or major donor in order to learn more about them? A simple invite to coffee, or is there more strategy involved? Keep it simple. Yes, invite them for coffee. Make yourself super accessible. Include your business card with your thank you letter. One of the things that is one of my pet peeves is when development directors or executive directors do not have their phone number in their email signature file. You need to be the most accessible person out there. And when people act like, well, I don't want to give them my cell number, why the heck not? But building relationships is not optional in fundraising. Building relationships is what fundraising is. And you need to have thick skin, and you need to know that it could take 7 to 10 invites to get coffee with someone before they actually have coffee with you. And you're not going to take that personal. And our friend who is just starting out in NOAA is not going to take that personal. So, yeah, so I put some goodies in the chat. I'm going to put another goodie in the chat in just a second here with with an asking guide, but I did pop in because Sarah and everyone was talking about like looking back to look forward, and I popped in a good guide that I wrote on like looking back at your year so that you can project your next year's performance. I'm going to do a quick little, I'm going to put an answer in the chat to you, Val. So sit tight for 1 second, Val, and I'm going to show you really quick. You are looking at something awesome that is from Linda, and we've got Linda's contact information in the chat, so you can like contact Linda. This is the Keep Your Job tool that she has, and she's got in here the calendar year, how much is being raised from different sources. And this is about knowing your data and understanding your data and knowing where the money is coming from. And I'm going to show you a quick little screenshot as well. This is just major gifts. So she had different categories: grants, gala, United Way. This is just major gifts. And I'm a really big fan of you having your donors, if you're a major gift officer, in a portfolio with a financial goal of how much you're going to raise for them, so that you know at the end of the day what you're going to raise, and so that you can you know, go back and push back on leadership if they're giving you grief about that. So Val said, what other ideas other than coffee? That always seems to be the only thing stated. It could be a quick phone call. It could be a Zoom. It could be a lunch. It could be, I mean, you know, we all eat lunch. I mean, you know, it could be anything. You need to find out like more about your donors' hobbies and what they're passionate about. Every moment with your donors a chance to do discovery, even if you just run into them into the grocery store. I'm going to pop a guide in here to help you out. But stewardship events are fantastic. If you have a cultivation event that your organization is doing, an open house, even if they don't come, my fundraising friends, the invitation is the cultivation. I'm going to see, okay. There were a few other questions that we got, and I'm going to see what is in the chat right now. There were a few other questions that we got around data capture, especially for Sarah. Mary Jo asked, I work for Women's Shelter. We've been open a year. I don't know when information to start gathering. You know, I think I answered this in the chat. I'm sure Sarah would back me up here, and because Sarah's really echoed this throughout our session here. What do you want to know? What do you want to know about your clients, about their demographics, how they found out about you, how you help them? As Sarah said, you've got to ask them multiple times, what do you want to know about your donors? What do they care about? What are they passionate about? What things are important to them? Is there anything you would add to that, Sarah? She's 1 year old. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, she's only 1 year old. So she's a baby. She's starting out from the beginning. So she could start out with Sarah's Head Start advice and be doing better than the average bear.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think what you said is exactly, sorry, I don't know if you can hear my phone ringing. Yeah, no, what you said, Rachel, is exactly what I would have said to Mary Jo. But yeah, think about if you are if you are applying for a grant application, or meeting with a very sophisticated large funder in 2 or 3 or 5 years, what would you want to be able to tell them in terms of your impact? And I always say, kind of like, you have to skate towards that future in terms of what you're collecting to be able to tell that story, that impact story. You may not, that data that you collect may not be super meaningful now and this year as you're trying to analyze it, but over time, if you can continue to collect certain information that you know is in your mission to what impact you're making, that will help demonstrate the case for you and what you're doing in your organization, that's going to be very useful.
I love how you phrase that. It's kind of like, think about what you want on your headstone. Like, what do you want to be able to say? Like, start with the end in mind. Here's a great question for France. This is fantastic. What is a good way to gauge a donor's capacity to give more money than they are currently giving? Because France this is one of his love languages, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, wealth scoring tools, wealth insight tools have been around for a while. And I mean, you easily Google and see the list. They're built into a lot of CRMs. So most tools are backwards looking, in the sense that they look at what people have given in the past and tell you, hey, this person has given $50,000 to environmental causes. The assumption being what people have done in the past is reflective of what they'll do in the future. There are another set of tools, Boodles in that set, right, that are making predictions, right? We use that past data and we make predictions about what people's capacity and propensity to give to different causes are. So anyways, you've got a lot of choices out in the marketplace in terms of tool sets. I would say also, but don't look at it in isolation, right? Linda and Sarah both talked about, you really need to form a giving table or pyramid and understand what the capacity of your entire donor pool is, and look at it as a large kind of problem to solve, right? How am I supposed to generate X millions of dollars this year, and think about the strategic part of fundraising and not just the tactical part.
I love it. And we've gotten a couple questions about tips, and I feel like this is one that Linda would be passionate about answering. Anonymously, someone asked, any tips on a good starting point for cultivation and retention of donors?
A good starting point is to start. Most of the time when we go in places, there's no plan of any kind for cultivation or stewardship. So one of the things we teach our clients is to, when you build your calendar for the year, to build the top of the calendar with donor groups, board members, major gifts, mid-level givers, general donors, foundations, corporations, and then write in each month the kind of interaction they're going to get, okay? One of the things I tell people all the time is relationship building and fundraising is like making friends. If friends and I make friends over this call, we're not going to always have a Zoom call every time we continue our friendship. He might say, hey, let's have a phone call. He'll send me an email. He might at some point say, hey, let's get to meet each other at Icon, right? He's moving our relationship forward in a natural way. That's just what you do with donors, right? You just move it forward in a natural way. Earlier, when you're saying, what do you do when you're trying to get the call? Say, hey, I want to call and give you an update on what's going on with this nonprofit that you support. Things are going great. We just got a big gift, or we just doubled the number of kids we serve. I'd love to tell you, I'm telling you, energy and enthusiasm will take you a long way in fundraising, right? But if you don't have any kind of willingness to pick up that phone or send that email and say, Mr. Smith, I'd love to get to know you better. People love to talk about themselves. Don't you guys? I do. I love to talk about myself, and so do donors. So that's one of the reasons we say, if you ask good questions, right? And when we're talking a minute ago, France, about how to predict what someone might give. I'll give you guys my very favorite fundraising question ever in the world. I've been using it for years and I love it. Tell me your very best gift you've ever given.
Yes.
And
yes.
they will almost always say, my biggest. And I'll be like, And then they'll tell you some fantastic story. Sometimes they'll tell you how much it was. Sometimes it's not their biggest gift. They'll say, oh, well, we've given millions over at such and such. But when we put my sister's name on this because we lost her to cancer, oh my God, what'd you just learn? A million things now about your donor. He brought his walls down. You became vulnerable together. The relationship got stronger. I mean, just some good questions. If you haven't ever read any Jerry Panis books, P-A-N-A-S, Jerry Panis, Jerry's got a great book called Power Questions. Oh my God, it's just full of fantastic questions, because the questions, that's your job as a fundraiser, is to be curious and pull all that information out of those donors. Hey, guess what? When we're talking, we're not learning anything, right? So the best thing I can do when I take France out as a board member and say, hey, tell me why you joined. Man, you give him your energy, tell me about it. He's going to tell you, I joined because I care, blah, blah, blah. Here's why. It'll change your life. I mean, donors are just dying to tell you, but I think sometimes we feel like as fundraisers, we're supposed to tell them. I'll talk all about my nonprofit. They can learn that stuff on the website in a lot of ways. They need to talk.
So Linda, I got to get you involved in some of the boards I'm on, because I love your energy. I love your enthusiasm. You're making a very important point, which I think needs to be made more often. Sometimes fundraisers think there's kind of this almost adversarial or contentious relationship with funders. They have something we want and it's kind of awkward and I'm trying to convince them. It's the opposite, actually. You're in a partnership. The funder wants to have an impact. And as a fundraiser, you want them to have an impact. And so you're working with them to figure out what is that meaningful impact that they can have through your organization. It's very much a partnership, and you're very much on the same, you're on the same page, you're on the same side of the equation.
Yes. And if you think, if you think your job as a fundraiser is to get money from people, you are dead in the water before you start. Your job is to help France practice his philanthropy, his love of other people through giving. That's your job. He already wants to do it. You're just your conduit. You're his conduit to the agency. You get to be the way that he gets to fulfill his philanthropic dreams. You're not twisting his arm. You're not pushing him over a cliff. You're helping him do what he already wants to. It's super fun. That's why we all are still here doing it. We love it.
It's the perfect job for a hopeless romantic, because you get to find out like how people want to make a difference, and then you get to bring them opportunities to do that. And I love what Linda and France and Sarah, I love all their advice. And when it comes to discovery, you should be asking questions and listening. You should be spending that time listening, and they should be talking versus you talking. So many nonprofits get nervous, and it's like they start giving this like report card of how great they are, but it's about your donors and how great they are, not about you. And I'm going to turn things over to Kate now.
Yeah, I was just going to say, we probably have time for one more quick question, but before we do that, I'm going to pop up a poll. One last chance to learn anything about any of our Focus Week speakers before we wrap up. I want to say thank you all four so much. Today was amazing. This was a great week, and what a fantastic way to kick off Bloomerang's new series. We have 2 minutes left. So Rachel, if you'd like to take one more real quick.
Yes, absolutely. So this is a question for France. If we have no visibility to potential donor giving, is it worth us to keep using the current database? And I did invite him to pop a link in, because during his session, he offered like a $500 coupon towards the work that they do with their clients, which includes identifying prospective donors with their data analytics. But that's typically an add-on, Adriana, in terms of like some databases allow you to do wealth screening, but that's typically and frequently an add-on. What would you say to that, France?
Hold on to all data. You just never know where the data is going to be helpful. And it's, unless you're like incurring incredible costs storing it for some reason, but data storage is cheap, hold on to your data. And you just never know what tools are going to come along that can make use of it. So
I love that. I love that. And that reminds me of a question that came up during Sarah's webinar where someone asked about cleaning their data. And someone asked about, I want to get rid of the Mr. and the Mrs. and I was so stressed out.
no,
And I'm with France. Don't delete that. You think you don't want it now, unless it's costing you money. Be thoughtful with your grooming.
Yeah.
Pruning. Maybe I should say pruning. Be thoughtful.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel, France, Linda, and Sarah. We really appreciate it. And I hope you all have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.